Let's hit the disclaimer first, all right? So the end of this passage from St. Paul's letter to the Colossians is one that will often make wives particularly uncomfortable, sometimes making the hair on the back of their neck stand up, and for a right reason. I mean, there have been times where men have used those words, wives, be subordinate to your husbands in everything, in a way to... just in a twisted way and to justify totally improper behavior. But the reality too, we may be in a slightly different cultural context today than in St. Paul's day, but the reality too is that men are called to a role of leadership, and particularly spiritual leadership in the family and in other ways. And if men were living that better, first of all, this wouldn't sound quite as startling if men really lived up to the role that God calls them to. But as well, St. Paul says, particularly in the letter to the Ephesians, husbands and wives be mutually subordinate to one another. And as well as you continue down through that, he opens up what it really means for a man to love his wife. And he says it's an imitation of Jesus, laying down his life for her, for the sake of her holiness, her salvation. And it's really about loving service and spiritual leadership. So, if a man were actually living the role that God had called him to in that, it wouldn't be such a startling passage. So, men need to do better, and we all need to do better. But, at the same time, even that awareness, recognizing, okay, St. Paul says something here, and, that we recognize that we're not living up to the standard, that fits so much of, I think a lot of our approach to the Holy Family. Like, all of us come to this feast recognizing, my family doesn't look like that. At least all the time, what a beautiful image. And during the season, whether we see this particular depiction of the Holy Family or our nativity scenes, they look so pristine, don't they? And, certainly so much of it is because of the holiness of St. Joseph, our Blessed Mother, and the divinity of Jesus. It is pristine. And I know when I come to this day, I have a lot of thoughts about my own experiences, other people's experiences of family. And, I think there's some place in a lot of our hearts where maybe we're like St. Joseph when he recognized that St. Mary was pregnant through the Holy Spirit, and he wanted to separate himself from her because he recognized how glorious this was. I can't mess this up. I don't belong in the presence of such glory, I think there's a little piece in our hearts too as we celebrate this feast that I can't get near that because, I'm going to mess that up, or that my family doesn't match up at all with that, so I need to stay away. And there's something good about recognizing, that place in our hearts or something like it. Not so much that you can beat yourself up for your own experience of family, but so that you can move forward from this place forward, right? Sometimes I think, Jesus, as a little child there, that image of family, makes us want to go back to the beginning and recover something that should have been there, or so we think. To wish we could go back and recreate. And whether it's in the spiritual life, in our own personal lives, or in our family lives, that's not what it's about. It's not about going back to the beginning and putting back together what we think should have been there. It is truly about moving forward from this place on. And that's so much of the gift that we're given today, that the Holy Family draws us deeper into the mystery of their life, but also gives us the grace to recommit ourselves wherever we are in our families today. We recognize that, for whatever reason, sometimes big ones, whether it be divorce or loss of a spouse or a child, or just the divisions that we face in our families, that we need the grace of God given through the example and intercession of the Holy Family to recommit and move forward. And there's so many places in between. There's so many places in between this and the rupture of family as well. Sometimes you do come across a family where you're just like, wow, Holy Family, and other times where you're just living life and in the fidelity to the vocation that the family's called to. God's life and love is just shed by their simple living of life together. I've been sharing this story to make a long story short. We never know the simple ways that God's love is communicated through our family and in our fidelity to one another, and just persevering in love and faith. I had the opportunity to share with a family that I had been visiting in a hospice facility, who I had walked in the door, and they were having as good of time as they could under the circumstances. They were really entering into the moment and enjoying one another's company and celebrating these last few days of their loved one's life. And then when we celebrated the last rites, everything was just so somber. It was so somber. And I turned around and I said, "What did I do? They're not going to recover from this." I said, you're okay. Don't be afraid to pick up that piece of pizza again, you can go back to where you were. It's really okay. And, they looked incredibly reluctant to do that. And so I said, "Look, let me tell you a story." It was, just one of the first times I had gone to a hospice facility, and I walked with this family for a few months in my first assignment. And, so we celebrated the sacraments with the man who is dying there with his wife and his children. And, afterwards I was just saying, what's your experience of this been like here at that facility? And they said, well, they've been really great to us. They said, make this your home as much as possible, while in the time that you're here. So do you want a beer? Do I want a beer? They say, yeah, it's like home, And, their devotion to one another in that moment and their comfortability with each other and with me, in some sense, their expression of hospitality in the most difficult moment of their lives was such an incredible witness to me. And, it's really stuck with me. And so now, years later, it was a moment of consolation for another family. And I recently had an opportunity to tell the first family about that. And I just said, look, you'll never know the simple ways that your devotion to one another impacts other people. And, I think this family would be the first ones to tell you, they don't necessarily look like the Holy Family, but their fidelity to one another and the simple ways that they pour themselves out in love truly is a witness. And God's love is shed in many ways. So, no matter where we are, it doesn't matter if, you're in a place where, you lament that you don't have an immediate family with you, you don't have a spouse, you don't have children, or whatever it is, or there's been those major fractures and ruptures in your life. Or if you're totally on the other end. And I think if somebody actually looked like the Holy Family, they probably wouldn't say they look like the Holy Family. But no matter what situation you're in, you have an opportunity to recommit yourself to fidelity to, if nothing else, praying for, your family that's in need of prayers. Being that source of peace, God coming through you, and just being a peaceful presence in your family. At the same time, too, there are those situations that, maybe in an earthly sense, they're not going to be restored here, and that's part of what such the great gift of the Holy Family is to us, is recognizing that, through our baptism, we're drawn into this mystery, right? We always have a place in the Holy Family. St. Joseph belongs to us as a father. Our Blessed Mother, we call her that for a reason. She is our Blessed Mother. Jesus gives us that privileged place in that family. So they are always ours. And as we go forward, no matter if you're a father or mother, husband and wife, child or child, you all have a place in that family. And, I had mentioned on Christmas that so much of the season is recovering that childlike wonder and trust in the Lord. And, it continues here today. It's no coincidence, it's no random act that as God's salvation comes into the world, he comes born into a family. He doesn't just come, starting off as a great king. He starts off as a son within a family. And again, no matter what our experience of family is like in this life, this is our family. And whatever role we play in our families in this life, we always have and need to go to the place of that child Jesus and allow ourselves to be loved and nurtured and disciplined and strengthened and loved in the Holy Family. They belong to us, and in some ways they make up what's lacking in our lives. So we have that opportunity to recommit ourselves today to love and charity and devotion and fidelity to our families. Well, we have that opportunity to, ask God to really give us the courage to allow ourselves to be drawn into this mystery, that we might receive from our true father and mother in the Holy Family, the grace and the love that we need to be that loving and peaceful presence in our families on earth.